Every night I take the subway to work and back home. The bus ride to work takes 30 minutes, but I can walk to the metro stop from my apartment in 5 minutes. My boyfriend came to my place one night to hang out with me before I had to go to work. We were talking so much that we forgot how late it was. Now that I saw the time, I needed to hurry to get to the bus stop. The night was one of those snowy ones where everything is white. It would have been even later if I had to wait for my boyfriend to warm up the car and clear the snow off of it. That's why I chose to walk to the metro stop. I said goodbye to him. He then went to his car, and I began to walk. There are good lights in most of the places I walk through, but one area is very dark at night. It's across from where the train stops. Things have never gone badly for me, even though I live in a bad area, so it was fine for me to walk alone at night. Getting to the station was all I could think about. Someone grabbed my arm as I got close to the dark corner across from where I was going. I had no idea he was coming. The man, who looked to be in his 40s, also tried to grab my other arm. I quickly hit him in the stomach with my elbow. I was lucky that I moved quickly because the man let go of me for a moment. That gave me a chance to get away from him as quickly as I could. I looked back when I got to the metro stop and saw that he was still following me. I ran through the station quickly and left through a different door on the other side of the building. I ran until I got to my room without getting hurt. My boyfriend, thank goodness, was still in the parking lot, waiting for his car to warm up. This is what I told him when I got into his car. We asked the cops to come. They asked me to describe the man as best I could. My boyfriend drove me to work that night, but when I work at night, I usually take the train. The cops never got back to me, so I guess they didn't find the man. I've been bringing pepper spray with me every time I walk to the station since then. I walk around with it in my hand until I'm done. I lived in a small town in Washington when I was 12 years old. It must have been summer, and I couldn't wait to hang out with my best friend Rose. When I asked my grandmother if I could stay at Rose's, she said yes. Another boy from school, whose name I can't remember right now, was already at Rose's house when I got there. He was excited for us to try out this new game he had. His house was next door to hers. When we got to his house around 6:30, the game he brought wasn't very fun, so I just stood there and stared out of his bedroom window. I could only see our images in the window and the TV's glow because it was so dark outside. As I leaned forward a little, I could see up into the tree branches. I was sitting right next to the window. When I looked up, I saw 2 red eyes staring back at me. What was that? It was too dark for me to see anything else. I was really scared. Those red eyes were all I could see. My throat got tight, and I began to shake. I whispered to my friends by the TV, "Guys, look up at the tree." Rose looked at me and then at the tree. She stopped moving and looked very scared. The other friend looked too, but he quickly left the room. We both ran after him because we didn't want to be by ourselves. His dad was watching TV in the living room when he got there. He didn't believe us at first, but he got up and looked outside in the end. As they stared at us, he saw the eyes, which looked like they could see right into our hearts. The dad of our friend grabbed his baseball bat and told us to stay inside. He quickly left through the back door and shut it tightly behind him. Soon after, though, we heard our friend's dad yelling at something in the backyard. After that, he ran back inside so quickly that he almost broke the door. He then grouped us all in the master bedroom, which was the only door that could be locked besides the front and back doors. The cops soon showed up, but when we told them what struck, they didn't believe us. They told us we were making things up. In our hearts, we knew it wasn't all in our heads. We are 4 people, one of whom is an adult, and we all saw the same thing. I went to a friend's party at their house when I was 14 or 15. It happened in the UK. I had a great year that year. I wasn't stressed out. I didn't have to do anything in the morning, and my mom made dinner for me. There were nice clean sheets on my bed that I didn't have to clean or change. After that, things got really hard. But there was one thing that made me feel very sad. I once went to that party I told you about at a friend's house. She asked about 50 people to come. Most of them, about 90%, went to our school, but some, 10%, didn't. But there were some older men there. I didn't know them, so it felt strange at first. I was careful because I was 14 and a girl. Some of those guys looked older than 16 or even 18. Some of my best friends from school were the ones I hung out with the most. My main friend, who planned the party, was very busy talking to everyone and setting up everything. Anyhow, it was a great night. Great music, tasty food and drinks. The hard part came next. I needed to find a way home. My mom didn't even know I was there. and it was clear I couldn't drive when I was 14. It's possible that you want to know how my mom missed me at the party. Well, she was away, leaving me at home by myself. Yes, except for my big brother. He didn't care that I was there because he was always on his computer. It would likely be 2 months before he even knew I was gone. I went to the party, but I had to leave for home. The mom of one of my friends drove me there, so I thought it would only take 10 minutes to walk back after the party was over. My friend called the party off around 1 a.m. because her mom was getting mad. Her mom didn't really care what anyone was doing, but she told her she had to go to sleep because she had to work the next day. After all that, I left. I didn't ask anyone for a ride because I didn't want to bother them. Plus, almost no one drove there anyway. There were just 2 guys driving. I was sure they were older than us because they had to be at least 17 years old. I began to walk home. The streets were dark, and some of the lights were out. I saw car lights behind me as I walked. The car wasn't going as fast as the ones that went by me before it. It was moving very slowly. Once the car stopped for good, the guy rolled down the window. I remember him from the party. He told me to call him if I needed a ride. But man, he made me feel really creepy. I chose to walk away and say no, but he wouldn't give up. He drove next to me at the same speed as I was walking, and the window was still down. He told me over and over, "You shouldn't be out here at this time of night. It's too late now. It's cold, I'll drive you back." I began to think less of him the more he urged. It sent up more and more warning signs, and I was almost ready to run away. He stopped the car all of a sudden. He had been driving next to me for 5 minutes, yelling at me to get in. This caught me completely off guard. I didn't know what to do when I turned to face him. I knew I couldn't get away from him. My shoes had about 3-inch heels, so I wouldn't have a chance against him. He was bigger and faster than me. I learned that the only thing I could do was scream for help if something bad was going to happen. That's what I did. I screamed as loud as I could. I felt like I was going crazy. At some point, almost everyone on the street heard me. A few people opened their windows, but the guy just stood there with his car going. He must have known that everyone was looking at him. He looked up and saw people and lights in every window. 2 of them just stood with their windows open and looked outside. They didn't say anything. I believe they were just interested. He quickly turned around, got back in his car, and drove away when he saw them. He didn't go to our school, but some of my friends said he was a nice guy. He really did go to college. I didn't know him, though, and I never wanted to get in his car. I spent a lot of time at the library late in the winter of 2012. The sun had already gone down, so it was dark outside. It was evening, and there wasn't the normal buzz of my friends studying with me. I couldn't remember why they didn't show up. The library told me it would be closed in 5 minutes as I was getting my things together. I paid close attention to my studies because I had a test in 3 days. I put my books in my bag after getting them together. After that, I threw it over my shoulder and walked toward the library exit. It seemed very loud, even though it was very quiet. It was very quiet in the library, but I thought I was the only person there besides the worker. When I went outside, it felt very cold to me. The weather got really cold, and there was no one else on campus when I looked around. I went back to my house on foot. Something very scary did happen, though, before I got home. Around the middle, I had to cross a big road. It's strange that the school is split into 2 parts. I have no idea why they made it that way. But there's a highway going through the school. Even though it wasn't hard to cross during the day, it was much harder at night. There are big steps that go over the highway that you can use to get across. A pass is what some people call it. You walk on top of it to cross. That's pretty cool, and I saw a lot more of them in Europe and the UK. Many people have them in those places, but not where I live or in the state I'm from. When I got to the steps, I carefully watched each step as I went up. There wasn't much snow yet because it was just the start of winter right after fall, but it was very cold, with frosty conditions. Even though I had on a beanie hat and a scarf to keep warm, I was still cold. My nose was the worst part. It was so tingly and numb. After going up the first set of steps, I had to walk on the platform across the highway. That's what I did. When I got to the middle, I saw a few cars going by. By then, there wasn't as much traffic. I guess it was because rush hour was over. A lot of people were already home from work. It might be around 7. A few cars went by, but nothing out of the ordinary, until I got to the end of the platform. To get back to the other side of the highway, I was about to go down the second set of steps. I saw something very strange. On the highway, you could only go about 80 miles per hour. It could be even faster. Don't quote me on that because I'm not a driver. But every car was going fast. After that, there was this car. It looked like the kind of van that a creepy person would drive to try to grab people. It made no sense to me. Not even close to the speed limit were they going. They were moving very slowly like a snail. I thought they might be lost, but how do you get lost on the highway? They were moving so slowly that I was getting closer to them. It looked like their van could park where the steps met the ground. I was very worried as I went down the stairs. I tried to be quiet and avoid looking at them. I was scared and didn't know what was going on with the people in that van even more now. I saw that the van had stopped right at the bottom step and was getting closer as I went down the stairs. I could make out the faces of two men sitting inside, who were totally hidden by the darkness. I could see their lips and tell they were men by the shape of their jaws. It looked like I was being careful with the ice, so I slowed down while I thought about what to do next. I didn't want to go all the way down the stairs because something didn't feel right. They would get out of their van and turn on their warning lights if it had broken down. That's not what they were doing, though. They did nothing but sit there. Their eyes were on me the whole time I was getting closer. That was it. There was ice on the steps, so I slipped and fell hard on my forearms. I turned around and started running back up to my college. It hurt a lot to use them to catch myself. I thought the steps were going to break my bones. I got up, but my arms hurt like they were broken. I didn't care about that, though, at that moment. I began running back across the station. I thought I heard the door to the van open and close, which made me run faster. I was worrying more and more with each step. I didn't even think about the ice when I got to the other set of stairs to go back down. I kept running without taking any steps and almost fell again. To my surprise, I didn't slip on the first step. I was too scared to look back, so I didn't. I thought they were right behind me. It felt like they were after me. I got back to school and ran into the library as fast as I could. Luckily, the worker hadn't locked up or closed the doors yet. I ran up the stairs in the library and went right into a room. I talked to a worker about what had happened and told them everything. Within 2 minutes, the security team, then the cops, and finally the medics showed up. It turned out that both of my arm bones were broken. The police looked at the highway CCTV video and saw that the men did stop by the road. I even slipped and fell, and they caught it on camera. There were cameras on some of the streetlights. They could see where the men were going because of this, but their license plates were not legal, so they could no longer be found. No one knew who they were, and I now never walk home alone at night, especially when it's dark. My job is to keep people safe at a business in Southern California. The sheriff's office and I work together to keep the places we cover safe. As a watch officer, my job is a lot like being a police officer. We're taught to deal with a wide range of situations, from trespassers and burglaries to domestic disputes. This is different from most security guards who just watch and report. A few times I've chased after people on foot and in cars. That's how we do things. Do you understand what we do now? Let me tell you about something I will never forget. For some reason, I had to switch shifts and now work the day shift instead of the night shift. I remember listening for calls on the radio as I drove around the city in my police car. Another one came in from my area. It was a theft alarm on the north side of the city in the middle of nowhere. I was told to check it out around midnight or early in the morning. I went dark, which means I turned off all the lights as soon as I got to the property road. As I approached, the property seemed desolate. The alarm was still going off in the distance, faint but persistent. I parked my vehicle a few hundred feet from the building to avoid being seen right away, and started to walk cautiously toward the structure. The property was a large, abandoned warehouse surrounded by a chain-link fence. The gate was wide open, which immediately raised red flags. I radioed in to confirm my arrival and started scanning the area with my flashlight. Everything seemed eerily quiet except for the faint sound of the alarm. I moved toward the warehouse's main entrance, my hand resting on my service belt. The door was ajar, and I could see faint light coming from inside. I pushed the door open carefully, trying not to make a sound. My training had taught me to stay alert and expect the unexpected, and this moment was no different. Inside, the air was musty, and the space was dimly lit by a few overhead lights that flickered sporadically. Rows of empty shelves and crates created plenty of hiding spots. I methodically swept the room, checking every corner. As I moved deeper into the building, the sound of faint rustling caught my attention. "Security! If anyone is in here, come out with your hands up," I called out, my voice firm but calm. There was no response, but the rustling stopped. I kept moving, the tension building with each step. Then I heard a loud bang behind me. One of the crates had been knocked over. I spun around quickly, my flashlight illuminating the area. A shadow darted across the room, disappearing behind a row of shelves. My adrenaline surged as I pursued the figure, careful to maintain a safe distance. "Stop right there!" I shouted, but they kept running. As I rounded the corner, I caught sight of the person, a man wearing a hooded sweatshirt and jeans. He seemed startled by my presence, but determined to escape. He bolted toward the back of the warehouse, where I noticed an open loading dock. I chased him outside, where the cold night air hit me. The man was running toward a parked car at the edge of the property. I immediately radioed for backup, giving a description of the suspect and the vehicle. The car's engine roared to life as the man jumped in and sped off. Luckily, I was able to note the license plate number before he got too far. I relayed the information to dispatch and was instructed to stay on site until reinforcements arrived. Within minutes, additional units showed up to secure the scene and assist with the investigation. Back inside the warehouse, we discovered tools, some stolen electronics, and other items that suggested the man had been using the space as a staging ground for theft. The license plate led authorities to the suspect, who was later apprehended. It turned out he was wanted for multiple break-ins in the area. That night reinforced the importance of staying vigilant and trusting my instincts. It's moments like these that remind me why I chose this line of work. Keeping people and property safe is not just a job. It's a responsibility I take seriously every day. Onions used to be packed in that building, which has big hangars on the west side. We were hired to keep an eye on it now that it's empty. During my nighttime checks, I've been inside many times, but until this night, nothing strange had happened. Also, remember that the place doesn't have any working lights, so it was very dark inside. Anyway, I drove to the west side of the land and carefully looked around the outside. That's when I saw a door that was only slightly open. I sent a message. As I smoked my cigarette next to my car in the rare rain that Southern California gets, everything was fine. I like it when it rains. If I remember right, the wind was also pretty strong that night. My friend and partner showed up after about 5 minutes. In fact, I'm really close with him outside of work. We took our flashlights and went inside. As soon as you walk in, the strong smell of onions hits you. Really, it's that strong, you can almost taste it in your nose. When we check the clothes, they are big, dark, empty, and smell bad all over. Now this is where things start to get scary. There is light rain on the metal roof, which we can hear. The wind is getting through any gaps it can find. Then it takes place. There are sounds of feet on the roof of the hangars. When I look at my partner, I say, "Dispatch confirms." He shrugs and replies, "Yes." We start looking for them all over the building in every corner. After that, we go outside and look around the building. As I thought, there was no way to get to the roof. In this weather, why would anyone be up there? We say it was the wind. We make sure of everything, and if everything is fine, we call it Code 4. Something very creepy happens as we walk back through the hangars we just checked, which is the only way out to get to our cars. Before, I didn't believe in ghosts or anything like that, and I always thought those TV ghost shows were funny. On those shows, people always say that they hear whispers but can't figure out what's being said. If you can believe it, my partner and I heard whispering, like more than one person at the same time. It was very clear, but I couldn't understand a word. My partner and I both stopped in our tracks. We just looked at each other. Once more, I gave a code 6 and we began searching the property again. We knew what we heard wasn't right, but we had to check to see if there was still someone inside that we had missed. That's when things get crazy. There are slammed doors all over the place. My partner and I just look at each other. I don't say anything as I walk outside. It's not that we were scared, but we were definitely shocked. I sent in a second code 4. I looked at my partner as we stood outside. I said, "Let's just say it was the wind." I never went back to that place after that, before they made me a corporal and switched me to day jobs. Even though I don't believe in ghosts, I know that night it wasn't just the wind.